The day we buried my father was unseasonably cold for October. I stood at the edge of his grave, watching as mourners placed white roses on his casket, each flower a testament to the lives he touched during his 63 years. My sister Olivia clutched her husband's arm, her designer black dress and perfect makeup a stark contrast to my simple attire. Even at our father's funeral, she had to make a statement. "He should have had a will," Olivia whispered to her husband, loud enough for me to hear. "Now everything's going to be so complicated." I closed my eyes, trying to block out her voice. Trust Olivia to think about money while we were literally standing over Dad's grave. But she wasn't wrong. The lack of a will would make things messy. Dad's successful construction company, our childhood home, his investments, everything was now in limbo. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I understood my family. I was the quieter daughter, the one who chose to become a high school teacher instead of joining the family business. Olivia was the star, the one who went to business school and worked alongside Dad since she was old enough to read a contract. Sarah. My mother's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood beside me, elegant even in grief, her silver hair perfectly styled. "Come with me for a moment, dear." We walked away from the crowd, past the rows of granite headstones until we reached a massive oak tree. Mom's hands trembled as she reached into her purse and pulled out a cream-colored envelope, sealed with wax in an old-fashioned way that was so characteristic of my father. "Your father wanted you to have this," she whispered, pressing the envelope into my hands. "Open it when you're alone." And Sarah, she hesitated, her eyes meeting mine. "Whatever you read, remember that your father loved you." Before I could respond, she turned and walked back to the funeral, leaving me holding an envelope that felt heavier than paper should. I slipped it into my purse, my mind racing with questions. Why me? Why not Olivia? And why did Mom look so worried? The wake was held at our family home, a sprawling Victorian mansion that Dad had lovingly restored over the years. I watched as Olivia commanded attention in the living room, sharing stories about working with Dad, about how she was his right hand at the company. Our relatives nodded approvingly. Of course, Olivia would take over the business now. It was what everyone expected. "Sarah, darling," my Aunt Margaret approached, martini in hand. "I hope you're not too worried about all this. I'm sure Olivia will take care of you." I forced a smile, feeling the envelope burn in my purse. "I'm fine, Aunt Margaret. I have my own life, my own career." "Yes, teaching," she said with a slight grimace. "Well, it's admirable work, dear. Though your father always hoped you join the family business." I excused myself and escaped to Dad's study, the one room in the house that still felt entirely his. The leather chair behind his massive oak desk still held the impression of his frame. His reading glasses lay on a stack of contracts, as if he just stepped out for a moment. The envelope felt heavy in my hands as I finally pulled it out. The wax seal bore Dad's signet ring impression, the family crest he'd had specially made when the business took off. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and pulled out several pages of Dad's distinctive handwriting. "My dearest Sarah," the letter began, "if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and the time has come for you to know the truth about our family's legacy and why I've worked so hard to protect you from it." I continued reading, my hands shaking more with each paragraph. The words on the page couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake. But as I read further, pieces of my childhood began falling into place. Strange conversations I'd overheard, mysterious business meetings, and why Dad had been so insistent that I stay away from the company. A knock at the study door made me jump. "Sarah?" Olivia's voice called out. "What are you doing in Dad's study? The lawyers are here to discuss the estate." I quickly folded the letter and slipped it back into my purse. "Coming," I called out, my voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos in my mind. As I walked back to the living room, where our family lawyer, Mr. Patterson, was setting up his briefcase, I felt the weight of Dad's words pressing down on me. The truth about the company, about what Olivia had done, about why Dad had never written a will. It was all there in black and white. "Now," Mr. Patterson began, adjusting his glasses, "since Mr. Mitchell died intestate, we'll need to follow state laws regarding the distribution of assets. The company being the primary asset." I tuned out his voice, watching Olivia's satisfied smile. She had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Dad's letter had changed everything, and soon, very soon, our entire family would learn the truth about Mitchell Construction and the real reason behind Dad's sudden death. The afternoon dragged on as Mr. Patterson detailed the complex process ahead of us. Olivia took notes on her iPad, occasionally shooting me condescending looks as if to say, "Don't worry, I'll handle everything," if she only knew what was in that letter. Later that evening, as guests finally began to leave, Mom caught my eye from across the room. The look we shared spoke volumes. She knew what was in the letter. She knew that everything was about to change. I gathered my things and headed for the door, but Olivia stopped me. "Sarah, we need to talk about the company. I know you've never been interested in the business side of things, but we should discuss your shares. I'm thinking of buying you out. For a fair price, of course." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw what Dad had described in his letter. The ambition, the calculation, the absolute certainty that she deserved everything. "We'll talk soon, Olivia," I said quietly. "There's a lot to discuss." As I drove home that night, Dad's letter safely tucked in my purse, I couldn't stop thinking about his final words. "The truth will cost us everything, Sarah. But it's time for justice. You're the only one I trust to make it right." Tomorrow, I would start digging. Tomorrow, I would begin unraveling the carefully constructed lies that our family fortune was built on. But tonight, I would mourn my father, not just his death, but the weight he carried all these years, protecting me while watching his beloved company become something he never intended. The truth would indeed tear our family apart, but as Dad wrote, sometimes destruction is necessary for redemption. The morning after the funeral, I spread Dad's letter across my kitchen table, along with years of newspaper clippings I'd gathered overnight. The Mitchell Construction story was one of local legend. How my father built an empire from nothing, transforming a small contracting business into one of the largest development companies in the state. But Dad's letter told a different story. The company's success, he wrote, came at a price I never intended to pay. When the accident happened at the Riverside project in 2018, I thought it was just that, an accident. But what I discovered in Olivia's files changed everything. I pulled up the news articles about the Riverside project on my laptop. 3 workers had died when a support beam collapsed during construction of a luxury apartment complex. The official investigation ruled it an equipment failure. Mitchell Construction paid the families handsomely, and the story faded from headlines. But according to Dad's letter, Olivia had known about the structural issues weeks before the collapse. She had received multiple reports warning about substandard materials. But instead of halting construction, she buried the reports and pressured inspectors to sign off on the project. "The evidence is in my private safe," Dad's letter continued. "The combination is your birthday, I knew Olivia would never think to try that. Inside, you'll find everything: the original reports, emails, and proof of the bribes. I spent the last 5 years trying to make it right without destroying our family's name. But after what I discovered last month about the new downtown development project, I can't stay silent anymore. My hands shook as I read the final paragraphs. Dad had confronted Olivia just days before his heart attack. The timing couldn't be coincidental. My phone buzzed, a text from Olivia. Meeting with lawyers at 2 p.m. Don't be late like always. I stared at her message, remembering all the times she belittled me, dismissed me as the family failure, the sister who chose teaching over real success. If she only knew what Dad had entrusted me with. At 1:55 p.m., I walked into the Mitchell Construction headquarters. The 20-story building gleamed with success, our family name emblazoned across the lobby in gold letters. Employees nodded respectfully. They all knew the boss's daughters. The conference room was already full. Olivia sat at the head of the table in Dad's old seat. Mom sat quietly beside her, while various lawyers and executives filled the remaining chairs. "Sarah, how nice of you to join us," Olivia said, her tone dripping with condescension. "We've already begun discussing the transition plan." I took my seat, noting how everyone deferred to Olivia. She had spent years cultivating this image of herself as Dad's natural successor. As I was saying, she continued, "The board has expressed full confidence in my leadership. Given Sarah's alternative career choices, we feel a clean transition would be best. We're prepared to offer a very generous buyout package." The family lawyer, Mr. Patterson, slid a document across the table. "We've valued your shares at $5 million, Sarah. Very generous, considering your lack of involvement in the company." I picked up the paper, pretending to read it while my mind raced. They had no idea about the safe, about what Dad had discovered, about what I now knew. "Actually," I said quietly, "I don't think I'll be selling my shares." The room fell silent. Olivia's perfect smile flickered for just a moment. "Don't be difficult, Sarah," she said. "You've never shown any interest in construction. What could you possibly want with shares in a company you don't understand?" I met her gaze steadily. "I understand more than you think, Olivia. In fact, I'd like to schedule a full board meeting for next week. There are some matters Dad wanted discussed." "What matters?" Olivia's voice had lost its smoothness. "The Riverside project, for one," I said softly. "And maybe we should talk about those irregularities Dad found in the downtown development plans." The color drained from Olivia's face. Mom gasped quietly. The lawyers exchanged confused glances. "I don't know what you're talking about," Olivia said, but her hands were shaking as she shuffled her papers. "I think you do. And I think it's time the board knew everything. About the reports you buried, the inspectors you bribed, and exactly what happened the day Dad died." Olivia stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. "This meeting is over. Everyone out, except my sister." As the room cleared, I could feel the tension building. Mom was the last to leave, her eyes filled with tears as she looked between her daughters. When we were alone, Olivia's mask cracked completely. "Where did you get this information?" "Dad left me a letter," I said, standing to face her, "and a safe full of evidence. Did you really think he didn't know? About Riverside? About everything?" "You're bluffing," she snarled. "Dad would never." "The safe combination is my birthday," I cut her off. "When was the last time you remembered my birthday, Olivia? When was the last time you thought about anyone but yourself?" She moved faster than I expected, grabbing my arm. Listen to me very carefully, little sister. You have no idea what you're getting into. Take the money and walk away. This is your only warning." I pulled free from her grip. "No, Olivia. You listen. Next week, I'm going to open that safe. And everything you've built on lies is going to come crashing down." I walked out of the conference room, my heart pounding but my steps steady. In my purse, my phone was already recording, capturing every word of Olivia's threat. Dad had taught me well. Always keep evidence. That night, as I sat in my apartment reviewing more of Dad's documents, my phone rang. An unlisted number. "Ms. Mitchell?" a man's voice asked. "My name is James Torres. I was the site supervisor at Riverside before your sister fired me. I heard about your father's death. And there's something you need to know." I grabbed a pen, my hand trembling slightly. "I'm listening, Mr. Torres." "The day before your father died, he came to see me. He said he was gathering evidence, that he was going to make things right. He asked me to testify if it came to that." I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. "And would you? Would you testify?" There was a long pause. "Yes, your father was a good man. What happened to him, it wasn't right." After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, thinking about the path ahead. Dad's letter had unleashed a storm that would destroy everything: our family's reputation, the company he'd built, perhaps even our freedom. But as I looked at the photo of him on my desk, his kind eyes smiling at me, I knew I had to finish what he'd started. 3 families had lost loved ones at Riverside. How many more lives would be lost if Olivia's corruption continued? Tomorrow, I would visit the safe. Tomorrow, I would begin gathering allies. And soon, very soon, the truth about Mitchell Construction would finally come to light. The downtown offices were nearly empty when I arrived at 6 a.m. Only the cleaning staff and a few early bird employees roamed the halls. I took the executive elevator to Dad's private office on the top floor, my heart pounding with each ascending floor. The office remained untouched since his death. Family photos lined the walls, mostly of Olivia at company events, receiving awards, standing proudly beside Dad at groundbreaking ceremonies. Only one small frame held my college graduation photo, tucked away in a corner. The safe was hidden behind a large oil painting of the company's first building project. My hands trembled as I entered my birthday. 0 to 31 to 58 to 9. The mechanism clicked, and the heavy door swung open. Inside, organized with Dad's characteristic precision, lay folders upon folders of evidence, each one carefully labeled, dated, and annotated. But what caught my eye was a USB drive taped to the inside of the door with a note: "Security footage, my office, September 15th, 3 days before his death." I pulled out my laptop and plugged in the drive. The video showed Dad's office, this very room, from the security camera in the corner. Dad sat at his desk, looking tired but determined. Olivia stormed in, her face twisted with anger. The audio was crystal clear. "You can't do this." Olivia's voice crackled through my laptop speakers. "I built this company into what it is today." "You built it on lies," Dad replied calmly. "On corruption and bribes. Those families from Riverside deserve justice." "Justice?" Olivia laughed bitterly. "Where was your sense of justice when we were struggling? When we needed those first big contracts? You didn't care about cutting corners then." "I was wrong." Dad's voice was heavy with regret. "But this ends now. Tomorrow, I'm going to the board with everything." Olivia's next words chilled me to the bone. "No, You won't. You're going to take your heart medication and go home. And if you ever threaten this company again, remember, accidents happen in construction all the time. The video ended. I sat in Dad's chair, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't just corruption anymore. This was murder. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Parking garage. Level B2. 10 minutes. Come alone. Everything in me screamed that this was a trap, but I had to know. I copied the USB drive, slipped one copy into my purse, and hid the other in a place Olivia would never look, inside the frame of my graduation photo. The parking garage was dimly lit and eerily quiet. A figure emerged from behind a concrete pillar. "Mom, I've been watching the security feeds," she said quietly. "I knew you'd come to the safe eventually." "Did you know?" I asked, my voice breaking. "About Olivia? About what she did to Dad?" Mom's face crumpled. "I suspected. The night before he died, your father changed his heart medication. He said if anything happened to him, I should give you that letter. He knew Sarah. He knew what she was capable of." Before I could respond, elevator doors dinged. Olivia's voice echoed through the garage. "Well, isn't this cozy?" A secret mother-daughter chat. She wasn't alone. 2 large men in suits flanked her, their intentions clear in their stance. "I warned you to take the money," Olivia said, stepping closer. "Now you forced my hand." "Like you forced Dad's hand," I shot back. "What did you do, Olivia? Switch his medication? Make it look like a heart attack?" Her smile was cold. "Prove it." "Oh, I can," I replied, matching her tone. "The evidence is already with the FBI. Dad's files, the video from your confrontation, everything. Did you really think I'd come here without insurance?" The color drained from Olivia's face. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check your phone." On cue, her phone buzzed. Mine too. Breaking news alerts flashed across our screens. MTCGEL construction under federal investigation. FBI raise ARTES. "You didn't," Olivia whispered. "I did. An hour ago, I met with federal agents. They're upstairs right now, seizing every computer, every file. It's over, Olivia." The sound of sirens filled the garage. Olivia's hired muscle melted away into the shadows. She turned to run, but Mom's voice stopped her. "Enough. My husband is dead because of you. 3 families lost their loved ones because of your greed. Face what you've done, Olivia." Federal agents swarmed the garage, led by Agent Sarah Torres, James Torres's daughter. Poetic justice, I thought, watching them handcuff my sister. "Sarah Mitchell?" Agent Torres approached me. "We found additional evidence in the office. Your father, he left a recorded confession about everything. He was building a case against the company, against your sister. He was trying to make it right." I nodded, tears flowing freely now. That's all he ever wanted, to make things right. The next few weeks passed in a blur of headlines. Mitsubishi L Construction CEO, RRESTE, FORFFRAUD, and MURDR, RIVERSIDE, KRAGDU. The 2 Rulichidi revealed. Mitsubishi L Family Empire crumbles ANISVADAL. The company was dissolved, its assets seized. The families of the Riverside victims finally received justice and the truth about what happened to their loved ones. Mom and I moved away from the city, away from the whispers and pointed fingers. We bought a small house near my school, where I continued teaching. Sometimes, healing comes in the simplest forms. A year later, I visited Dad's grave alone. The family name had been tarnished, our fortune lost, but something more valuable had been saved: the truth. I placed a single rose on his headstone and whispered, "I did it, Dad. I made it right." As I walked away, I thought about that letter that had started everything. Dad knew that giving me that letter would destroy the company he built, tear apart our family, and expose decades of secrets. But he also knew that sometimes the cost of truth is worth paying. The Mitchell name no longer stood for power and success. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about greed, corruption, and the price of silence. But for me, it was simply the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. In my classroom, I teach my students about integrity, about standing up for what's right even when it costs you everything. I tell them that true legacy isn't measured in dollars or buildings, but in the choices we make and the truths we're willing to face. Olivia sits in prison now, serving a life sentence for Dad's murder and the Riverside deaths. Mom visits her sometimes. I don't. Some betrayals can never be forgiven. The last time I saw her, during the trial, she asked me why. Why Dad had trusted me with everything instead of her. Because, I told her, he knew I would choose justice over power. Something you never understood. Now, years later, when people ask about the Mitchell construction scandal, I tell them the real story. Not about the money or the corruption, but about a father's final act of courage, entrusting his quiet daughter with the truth that would both destroy and redeem his legacy. Sometimes the most devastating secrets come in simple cream-colored envelopes, sealed with wax and love. And sometimes the strength to face those secrets comes from the most unexpected places, like a teacher who chose truth over fortune, justice over power, and peace over empire.